How to effectively train a new employee. By the end of this video, you're going to know the one thing employees want most when they're coming into a new business. You will also have the 3 core questions that you can ask any employee as you're training and developing. I'm also going to equip you with a real-life model for organizing, developing, and implementing that training so that you can create employees that want to stay and lean in to hard, challenging things. Do you really know what your new employee thinks of their new job role or you? Wouldn't it be great if you could delegate all the things you don't want to do to your new employee and they did it just like you or even better than you? As we go around and we talk to different business owners and particularly contractors in the contractor space around, hey, what are the big challenges that you're facing right now? One of the things they tell us over and over and over again is they say this: it's hard to find good people. Nobody wants to work anymore. And we kind of call them out a little bit, talk back to them and go, hey, is it that nobody wants to work anymore? Because I know a lot of young people that really do want to work. Or is it they just don't want to work for you because you don't have a lot of clarity. You're not offering them that clarity that they want. And quite frankly, that's what a younger generation wants, even more than money, time off, remote flexibility. They want clarity. In fact, I could make the argument that that's what a 60-year-old wants as well. You might be asking, how do I find out what they want? Ask. That's it. A lot of times we don't even take the time to ask and we just assume, which is a whole other thing that you learned about when you were a teenager. And we don't want to do that. We want to sit down and ask, hey, ultimately, what would be meaningful for you as a team member of this business here? I'll give you an example. We used to not do performance reviews in our business. It kind of felt overwhelming and quite frankly a little bit aloof and when we did it. So we just took them away. And eventually we started asking team members, hey, what would be more helpful for you to get feedback from us? And guess what they said? Annual performance reviews. So we rebuilt it and brought it back in and we got their help on it. So we brought them into that. Now, I realize some of you might see that as a slippery slope. I could ask and they'll go, I want more money. I want what? Well, there's a tool that we use called the why drill. So just imagine a why because it ties in with the question, why? And here's how the why drill works. Hey, help me to understand what would make this job more fulfilling for you. And they'll come back and they'll say, more money. So instead of just going, why, don't be a jerk, what you can come back to is go, hey, thanks for sharing that with me. Can you help me to understand that a little bit more? Why would more money be more helpful for you? And what we did is we took the why drill and we cranked it and drilled down another layer. And then they're going to come back and say something, well, if I had more money, then I could afford more nice things. Hey, why would that be important if you had more nice things? We're taking the why drill and we're cranking it down. And so a lot of times when we ask questions, we take the surface level response and then we go adjust the entire business based on that one response. Instead of making time to listen actively, it's the first part of our 4 R's. Receive without distraction, record, remind, and report. But that receive, usually we don't do a good job of. We just take what's on the surface level and move on. But when we ask why and apply the why drill, we start to get clarity on what that employee really wants. Now, we've done a lot of that work for you, and what we found is most employees, especially new employees, want clarity more than anything else because they've already agreed to the money. I want to give you 3 questions I think could be helpful to help get you started. Number 1, ask a new employee, what could I provide for you so you don't feel babysat? Second, ask yourself, what would I want to know if this was my role? The third question to ask is, what do you think your client would want them to know? So what do they want to know so they don't feel babysat? Number 2, what would I want to know if I was in that role? And number 3, what would the client want them to know? If you can walk through those 3 questions, you're going to get deep level clarity on exactly what your new team member wants. So now let's say you've asked those questions. Let's talk about the how. The first principle we've got to go back to is what we call the systems mindset. That says this: whatever the next thing is you're about to do, let's capture it like it's the last time you will ever do it. You realize you can do that, right? You can take a spreadsheet, you can take a Google Doc, you can take a phone, you can take whatever and go, how can I capture this? How can I record this thing that I'm about to do so that it's the last time I ever do it? In our business, we do this every single week. This happens all the time. If you talk to, we have an implementation assistant that largely helps me with a lot of my projects. And before I ever give her anything to do, I do a video of what I'm asking her to do. And so that way she's got clarity. And I will tell you this, anytime I've not recorded it and I just simply say, hey, can you do this? It usually comes back not in the way that I'm hoping for. But if I show her how to do it and capture it on a screen recording or an iPhone or something like that, now she's got a model and she can pull that through with great speed. In fact, I would say better quality and better speed than I would have given it attention to. So you've got the systems mindset, you've asked the questions. Now we want to be able to deliver that training to the new employee. How can we do that? That's with the anchor. So this is a simple spreadsheet. It's no expensive software around here that we're going to get you started on. we want you to start on a spreadsheet. We're not against software. People ask us all the time, hey, what's the best project management software? You know what our response? You ready? Here comes the silver bullet. Whichever one you'll use. They're all pretty good. That's why we want you to start on a spreadsheet to develop the habit of using a tool before you then go out into the market and go buy a new software that you're going to have to learn a new language for. But we want you to start with a simple spreadsheet, and I want you to name it the anchor. The anchor is a simple reflection back on a climbing anchor, this pin at the top of a rock that holds all the climbing ropes that come down, and everything is dependent on that one pin staying put. That's what your anchor is. So what we're going to do is we're going to take all the training elements of those questions that you asked earlier, and we're going to take the answers to those, and we're going to map those out in 52 weeks of the year with whatever those things were that you heard back from. Now, you can either line them out individually, the answers to those questions, or you can line them out in categories in the 4 core systems of every business: marketing, sales, operations, and administration. And so as the business owner, you need to think of your business in those 4 core systems that are sitting on top of the 4 foundational cornerstones: purpose, people, process, and profit. So let's talk about the people side and the process side of training that process into your people. Let's say you have that anchor set up. You've got your 52 weeks. You've got all the training things that are going to be there. Now it's time for the accountability. How do we hold them accountable to make sure that they're actually training from what we've written down in the anchor? Well, it's actually pretty simple. There's a couple ways you can do this. One is you can have a weekly team meeting where you just simply ask them, did you watch the training? Well, hold on, you just said watch the training. Well, what training do they watch? It's whatever training you recorded. And so we need to make sure that that's recorded, captured, put in a place where they can get access to it. But on your anchor, you can literally just put the links to the training every single week. So marketing training, put any link that week, and week after week after week. And they'll have, so let's say you had 8 different items for marketing training. Well, let's pick 8 weeks throughout the year and let's put them there. Or you can do all 8 consecutive weeks and then copy and paste all throughout the year. That way we have repetition, predictability, and meaning. A lot of times what we'll say is, well, I told them what to do. Yeah, you told them once 6 months ago. That's why we've got to have repetition around that. Again, that's why the pilot's checklist is so important for pilots that are flying a plane. You got a pilot that has flown 30,000 flights, 10,000 flights, 5,000 flights. Guess what they do on the 10,001 flight? They go back to their pilot's checklist. Repetition. You cannot train your team enough. What does every sports team and military command have in common if they're not playing a game or fighting a battle? They are training relentlessly. In fact, we actually do a teaching for a lot of our clients called the T5 strategy. Ready for it? Training, 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 and training. Those 5. You get the repetition? Hey, if you've got a 6th point on that, just put it in the comments below. I'd love to hear what that 6th point is. That'd be fantastic. Each of your team meetings is a time to ask them and hold them accountable to the process that they've done. Now, what happens if you've trained on a process and that process doesn't get done? That's your cue to let you know that either the process is broken or the accountability is broken. Something's broken if it doesn't get done. But if you didn't have the training in place, you wouldn't have known it was broken in the first place. And it perpetuates mistakes, and mistakes are some of the costliest elements of your business. To have to go back to something because you have to pay out and you don't get any income in. And so make sure as a business owner, you've got the training developed, you've got the repetition using a tool like a spreadsheet or an anchor that I laid out on that spreadsheet. Use your team meetings for accountability, and then if something breaks, it doesn't come through, that's your cue to go back to the process to see if the process is broken or the implementation and accountability is broken. Now, I have got a full-scale series on this. If you'll click in the video in the description below, you can take the next step and really walk step by step on developing that new training program. I'm Scott Beebe. We work with business owners like you, 3 to 100 employees, to build out their purpose, people, process, and profit so that you can be liberated from chaos. I don't want you swimming in that stuff, so that you can have time for the things that matter most.